news, let's take a look at global markets. Chinese stocks closed higher on Tuesday, with the Shanghai Composite Index up 0.44%. Hong Kong stocks went up 0.56% on Tuesday. The 225 Asian Nikkei stock average lost 0.11%. On the currency front, the U.S. dollar declined against most major currencies on Monday ahead of the Federal Reserve's two-day meeting. Oil prices settled higher Monday on signs of U.S. stockpile declines. Gold futures on the COMEX division of the New York Mercantile Exchange fell on Monday amid expectations for the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate hike later this week. Now let's take a look at the U.S. stocks from our correspondent Wang Naishui in New York.
Okay, let's take a look at U.S. stock markets. U.S. stocks traded lower Monday as Wall Street awaited the Federal Reserve's two-day meeting, scheduled to begin Tuesday. With no major economic data due Monday, investors kept a close eye on the Fed's policy meeting. Analysts widely expected the central bank to raise interest rates at this meeting. Market expectations for June rate hike were 95.8%, according to the CME Group's Fed Watch tool. U.S. stocks ended mixed on Friday, with Nasdaq closing 1.8% lower as tech giant stocks tumbled. This is Wang Naishui reporting from New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you, Naishui. And now let's take a look at the agriculture futures.
It's been a lower day in the grain markets here today after some very hot weather here over the weekend. Temperatures in Chicago well into the 90s, into about the mid-90s, and then even warmer than that out in the Great Plains. A lot of expectations that we would have seen some higher prices in the Sunday night trade and spilling into Monday. But the weather forecasts for later on this week do call for some showers to develop and some somewhat more moderate temperatures to develop as well. Instead of 90 to 95 degrees, we might be closer to 85 degrees or even a little lower. Overall, a big turnaround here from week to week. The market looks like it has put in at least a temporary top at these levels. However, futures, especially in the corn market and also in the soybean market, very close to some pretty important support levels as well, and really holding those support levels so far. It'll take some improvement in the overall crop condition, I think, to really break those support levels, and we'll see if those numbers show up in the USDA reports on Monday night. Thanks very much. This is Jack Scoville, our Vice President of Price Futures Group, here on the CME Group floor with some comments for the markets.
Thank you, and we'll keep you updated on the daily agriculture futures. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says the administration has a backup plan if Congress were to miss its August deadline on raising the debt limit.
The federal government technically hit the debt limit in March, but Treasury has been using accounting steps known as extraordinary measures to delay an actual default. However, time is running out on this too, with the Treasury's cash balance falling from over $200 billion to under $150 billion in just a month. Lawmakers are due to begin a 5-week break in August, and Mnuchin had urged for a deal to be struck by then. Whilst still hopeful the deadline can be met, if missed, Mnuchin is also comfortable that the government can meet financial obligations through the start of September. American national debt stands at nearly $20 trillion. Raising the debt ceiling has become a politically charged vote in Congress, even though economists believe that an unprecedented default would be catastrophic for the economy. Republicans, who control Congress and the White House, are struggling to come up with the votes to raise debt limit, with some members demanding spending cuts in exchange for their vote. The result is that lawmakers are trying to deal with the debt ceiling while also working to pass spending bills to fund the government day to day.
Donald Trump is being sued by the city of Washington, D.C. and the nearby state, Maryland. They allege the president has violated the Constitution by accepting millions of U.S. dollars in payments and benefits from foreign governments since his inauguration.
The lawsuit was launched by Washington, D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine and his Maryland counterpart Brian Frosh on Monday. It claims Trump violated 2 anti-corruption rules in the Constitution, prohibiting the president from pulling in profits from businesses he owns, controls, or prospers from. In response, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer attacked the lawsuit as motivated by partisan politics. Anticipating the lawsuit, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a 70-page legal brief on Friday, arguing that Trump's businesses are legally permitted to accept market-rate payments from foreign governments while he is in office.
A U.S. federal appeals court on Monday ruled against implementing a revised version of President Donald Trump's travel ban. A panel of the U.S. courts for the Ninth Circuit presented its case against the travel ban blocked, dealing President Trump another major blow on his policy in less than 3 weeks.
The second travel ban, signed by Trump on March the 6th as an executive order, barred nationals of Libya, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen from entering the U.S. for 90 days. It also suspended the entry of all refugees. The travel ban was blocked in March by U.S. District Judge Derek Wilson in response to a suit by the state of Hawaii. The panel said the administration violated federal immigration law and failed to provide a valid reason for blocking U.S. entry for citizens from 6 Muslim-majority nations. It was the second time the Ninth Circuit Court ruled against the president's travel ban. The White House defended President Donald Trump's travel ban despite the appeals court's second ruling to block it.
We need every available tool at our disposal to prevent terrorists from entering the United States and committing acts of bloodshed and violence.
Spicer said he was confident the president would be vindicated.
We continue to be confident that the president's executive order to protect this country is fully lawful and ultimately will be upheld by the Supreme Court.
The Trump administration is expected to attempt to push the travel ban through again.
And now for more news from Europe. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, revised up its economic growth forecast for Italy on Monday. It now predicts the country grow 1.3% this year, up from 0.8% that before.
The IMF says Italy is in the third year of a moderate recovery, helped by government reform efforts, expansionary monetary policies, and low oil prices. The IMF also noted that unemployment and non-performing loans held by Italy's banks have declined somewhat from their crisis-driven peaks. According to the Bank of Italy, the amount of non-performing loans tripled from 2008 to hit 18% in 2015. Despite the modest growth, the IMF warned that Italy remains beset by weak productivity and low aggregate. Despite the modest growth, the IMF warned that Italy remains beset by weak productivity and low aggregate investment. It also said that economic expansion is being held back by structural weaknesses, high public debt, and impaired bank balance sheets. The country continues to be one of Europe's most struggling economies. Unemployment stands above the EU average at 11.7%. Its first quarter GDP growth was worst in the G7, and its debt mountain continues to grow. At the end of last year, Italy's deficit was still running at 2.4% of GDP, pushing up total public debt to be 132.6% of GDP. A new survey predicts the German economy to add 500,000 new jobs in 2017. According to the survey by the German Chambers of Commerce and Industry, 130,000 positions will be added this year in the healthcare sector alone, due largely to Germany's aging society. Service industries catering to businesses such as advertising agencies and market research firms are also predicted to create a combined 130,000 jobs. Anticipated job growth in the construction industry reached a record high of 35,000, driven by low interest rates and rising demand on housing. The German figures underline the wider picture of a strengthening Eurozone economy. An updated Eurozone estimate recently put GDP growth in a block at 0.6% in the first 3 months of this year. All 19 members recording growth at the start of the year, and unemployment in the Eurozone is at its lowest level since 2009. Ireland's construction sector surged to a new 15-month high in May. That's according to a survey by the Ulster Bank, who found that the construction PMI rose to 63.6 in May, up from 61.3 in April. The reading came in well above the 50 mark, which separates contraction from growth. It's now the 45th consecutive month the survey has shown the industry to be expanding. Firms report sharp increases in new businesses and further job creation during the month. Managers reported particular strength in housing, where activity expanded at the second fastest rate in the survey's 17-year history.
Moody's has downgraded the ratings of 5 of South Africa's largest banks. The move follows a downgrade to South Africa as a whole on Friday, when the ratings agency put the country at just one notch above junk status.
In all, Moody's downgraded 5 banks from the level of Baa2 to Baa3 with a negative outlook. The banks hit include Standard Bank of South Africa, First Rand Bank, Absa Bank, Nedbank, and Investec Bank. The agency said the main driver for the downgrades is the challenging operating environment in South Africa. Moody's expects South Africa's GDP growth of only 0.8% this year and 1.5% the next. Last Friday, Moody's downgraded South Africa's credit rating to one level above junk status with a negative outlook. It cited concerns about policy uncertainty, slower progress with structural reforms, and rising public debt. Despite the downgrade, Moody's remains the only major rating agency to keep South Africa at an investment-grade status. In April, both Standard & Poor's and Fitch downgraded South Africa's credit rating to junk status.
With new technology and smarter technology entering the market every year, car makers say that today's cars are the safest the world has ever seen. But one manufacturer is looking to go even further and reduce the number of accidents down to 0. Economy Report has the details.
Mats Fagerhag is the CEO of China Euro Vehicle Technology, or CEVT, who helps develop cars for the Geely Group, known for their Volvo brand and the London taxi. He remains confident in a vision to reduce the number of car accidents down to 0.
In the past, we developed cars to be safe in an accident. Now, taking the step with self-driving cars, avoiding the accident, the zero vision can really be realized.
Volvo has long been known for its attention to safety. Now it is set to be setting up 6 protection systems for car drivers, one of which is assisted autonomous driving.
With the system we are building into the cars now, with sensors, radars, different systems that can read the traffic situation, moving the car very safely in even difficult traffic situations. That means that the level of avoiding an accident is going to be so high, the risk of really being in a car accident is getting close to 0, and thereby we have set this vision.
When the car takes over the responsibility from the driver, who is responsible in an accident?
Here you have intensive works with the different governments because the infrastructure needs to be adjusted, etc., etc. And that's why I'm talking about this step by step. We believe that we're going to get to a situation where this legal responsibility implications will not be an issue.
A U.S.-China think tank symposium took place on Monday in the U.S. state of Iowa, with participants saying future U.S.-China relations look promising.
Over 20 Chinese and U.S. experts and scholars gathered to discuss a wide range of topics on U.S.-China relations. These included economic and trade cooperation and the future of bilateral ties. China's former Minister of the State Council Information Office, Zhao Qizheng, said the rapid development of Sino-U.S. economic and trade ties will provide a solid foundation for cooperation in other fields. Participants also expressed wishes for mutual beneficial and win-win relationship between China and the U.S. Earlier on Sunday, Chinese scholars and experts visited Kimberley Farm, where they inspected farm machinery, warehouses, and farmland. They met with farm owner and discussed the operation, mechanization, and management of modern farms, as well as agricultural exchange between China and the U.S. It's the first time Chinese think tank researchers are holding direct talks with American farmers. A farm based on a Kimberley model is to be built next year in North China's Hebei province, twinned with Iowa. Statistics showed bilateral goods trade between China and the U.S. has jumped from $2.5 billion in 1979 to nearly $520 billion in 2016. Bilateral service trade volume between the two countries in 2016 exceeded $100 billion, while two-way investment totaled $170 billion. A report released by the U.S.-China Business Council showed U.S.-China trade ties support some 2.6 million jobs in the U.S. across a range of industries.
Since May's Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, countries have been expressing their enthusiasm for more connected and developed world. We spoke to one Argentinian expert. He says that the initiative is an attractive offer for developing countries and dovetails nicely with the work of the G20.
Gustavo Guirado is director of the consulting firm Asia in Argentina. He says the Belt and Road Initiative shows China to be taking more of a leading role on the diplomatic stage.
For emerging countries such as Argentina, this reinforces that China is taking on a leading political and economic role, including at the G20, which Argentina will host in 2018.
In May, China held the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, which was attended by leaders from 29 countries. At the forum, countries agreed to work more closely on joint development strategies.
Many agreements which Argentina had signed in the past have been resigned or reinvigorated. It's a strong sign that, along with the new Silk Road and the G20, these countries can plot a joint course that will see far more global, multilateral political action and economic commitments. This will not only happen at the government level, but will also see private companies taking part.
At May's forum, China also pledged more financial support for the construction of the Belt and Road. This included about $14.5 billion for the Silk Road Fund and $8.8 billion in aid for developing countries and international organizations.
And now let's take a look at some economic news from China. China's top economic planner is encouraging private capital to get into the new energy vehicle market.
On Monday, the National Development and Reform Commission urged for the new energy vehicle, or NEV, market to be ramped up. The commission is calling for traditional car makers to restructure towards NEV production. China will also push for more mergers and restructuring in the conventional oil-fueled car industry as a way to free up capacity. The announcement comes as industry data shows production and sales of new energy vehicles in China soared in May. This is despite the overall car market remaining stable. A total of 45,000 NEVs were sold in May, up 28% year-on-year. Total auto sales remained stable, with 2.1 million vehicles sold in May, up 0.6% compared to April. China's NEV market has been growing rapidly, in part to government support. Central and local officials have rolled out a raft of policies, including subsidies and encouraging the construction of charging stations. Some of the biggest winners in the recent car figures include local companies BYD and Bike Motor Corporation. In all, China sold 507,000 NEVs last year, more than any other country. Official plans predict China will have NEV sales of 2 million a year by 2020, about 4 times the current level. China will cut the retail prices of both gasoline and diesel for the 5th time this year on Friday, following a drop in global oil prices. According to the National Development and Reform Commission, gas prices will decrease by about $26 per ton. China adjusts domestic retail oil prices when international crude prices change. Global crude prices have fallen in recent weeks following an expansion in output from the U.S. The NDRC expects global crude prices to continue to fluctuate, tempered by the effects of falling OPEC output and rising U.S. production. The country's top economic planner said is closely monitoring the current pricing mechanism and will continue improvements based on market changes. The amount raised by taxes in China slowed in May. The Ministry of Finance said China collected about $237 billion in May, up 3.7% year-on-year. This marks much slower growth than the 7.8% gain in April and the 12.2% increase in March. So far this year, fiscal revenue has climbed 10% year-on-year to pass $1.1 trillion by the end of May. The central government saw its take fall 3.6% since last May, while local governments saw their fiscal revenue expand 12%. The figures are the first full annual set since China overhauled its tax system last year. In May 2016, China expanded VAT to be the whole economy and abolished all other business taxes. In total, the Ministry of Finance estimates falling VAT income dragged down the total tax revenue growth by 8.4 percentage points in May. China has pledged a more proactive and effective fiscal policy in 2017 in order to support economic growth.
And next, let's turn to some news from global companies. Scandal hit car share company Uber has had another high-profile loss. Reports say Emil Michael, Uber's senior vice president and right-hand man to the company's CEO, has left the firm.
Company spokesman Matt Coleman confirmed the departure Monday. Michael is said to have told staff in an email that Sunday would be his last day, but declined to say why he was leaving. The news follows company president Jeff Drone stepping down in March after just 6 months in the role. The announcement came with Uber's board meeting on Sunday to discuss the corporate culture at the company. Uber have been hit by a number of allegations of widespread harassment at the tech startup. The board is said to have accepted recommendations from former Attorney General Eric Holder to change the company's culture. Their recommendations will be made public Tuesday. Germany's transport ministry is to test a Porsche SUV model following reports it could be breaching diesel emissions limits. Porsche has said the Spiegel test was implausible and its vehicles meet emissions requirements. Its sister company Volkswagen is to pay fines and compensation after admitting cheating on emissions tests in 2015. Volkswagen fitted some of its diesel vehicles with the Feed device software designed to detect testing and change performance to improve results. Foxconn has lined up several high-profile U.S. technology firms to join its bid for Toshiba's memory chip unit. Apple and Dell are among the firms also involved in the consortium. Foxconn, the world's biggest contract electronics manufacturer, makes the iPhone for Apple. It was not clear to say how much Foxconn planned to offer for the division, with analysts valuing it at about $18 billion. Toshiba has been forced to sell some or all of its microchip unit in order to cover huge losses in its nuclear division, with Westinghouse Electric filing for bankruptcy.
云天无际，承载梦想。中国南方航空是中国运输飞机最多、航线网络最发达、年客运量最大的航空公司。亚洲第一，全球第三，是南航缔造的业界奇迹。 蓝天壮志情，云海谱华章。
Hi, this is Little Chinese Channel, 小小中文 Lesson 23. In this lesson, we will be studying these 6 Chinese characters. From our last lesson, we learned the root character, If we put a slanted stroke to the left on top of it turns into bai. Bai means white. Bai se means white. Bai is part of these 2 characters. If we turn bai back into and put a 十 right below it, this character is 早 means morning or early. 早上 means morning. If we turn 早 back into and make it back to bai and add a horizontal stroke on top, this character is 百 means 100. 100 means 100. 百分比 means percentage. Next, we'll learn a new root character. What's this? 开 means to open. 开门 means to open the door. If we make these lines go up a bit, make them poke out, it is 井 means wells. 井水 is well water. If we make these two strokes short vertical strokes and put a ba under it, this character is 共 means all together. 总共 means all together. It's time to write. Remember when you're writing to follow the stroke sequence. By 走 百 开 井 共 Bye-bye, the lesson is done. Dad, Mom,